Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. Today, we're going to review all the teams for MLB baseball. We're going to start with the American League. Um, I do apologize for the very low sound right now. I'm having some sort of an issue with the sound. It will not respond to me very well. It's not picking up my voice very well, and I don't really have a mic. I might have to get one now because for some reason it would work before. It was fine with sound. I was plenty loud enough, but now all of a sudden all the volume has completely disappeared. I've looked through the settings on the site that I use to record all this stuff, and there's nothing on there. So I don't know what in the world caused it to go so low, but I don't really have anything to change it right now. And since I really need to just get all of these all these videos out, I don't have time to try and fix it either. So I'm just going to go and start this episode now. I'm also using the standings from last year because mostly just so I can see what the records were last year, and I know mostly who signed where. I have been paying attention a decent amount to baseball this past year, so I mean, it is it can be a lot. I don't know. Never mind. Let's just get this started. Um, First team we have to talk about is the Tampa Bay Rays. Um, as you can see, the record last year 162, pretty doggone good. I think it was actually their first ever 100 win season. They would end up losing to the team, honestly, directly right below them, right there in the Boston Red Sox. With Tampa Bay, they had a good season, and really most of the team, pretty much the entire team that they had last year, outside Nelson Cruz, who they traded for at the deadline, is still there. The Rays pretty much still have everybody that they had from last year on the team. As I said, Nelson Cruz is the only one that left. He went to the Washington Nationals, which, by the way, part of the lockout agreement, the bargaining agreement between the MLB and the MLBPA was that the National League adopt the DH, so there will no longer be pitchers hitting ever again, or at least for the foreseeable future. So you'll actually get to see DHs in the National League and across all of MLB baseball, which is kind of nice. We don't have to see pitchers flailing around at the ball anymore. Of course, Otani will still hit, but I mean, unless your pitcher actually can hit, you can just throw your best available hitter out there instead of just having a Max Scherzer or a Walker Buehler trying flailing at the ball. I mean, eh. But Tampa Bay, they got about the same pitching staff, I'm pretty sure, as they did last year. Most of their hitters are still there. I don't think they'll get to 100 wins this year, but I do think that the Rays will be pretty much in that same area. They'll be right around the playoffs once again. I think they'll be right around that cut line probably. Last wild card spot would be my guess. Right below them was the Boston Red Sox, who just made the cut last year. They had a great start and then kind of faded out and would eventually just barely hold on to the last wild card spot as they would finish 92 and 70. It was really a surprise season for the Boston Red Sox. This is a very old team. No one expected anything from Boston, and they did incredibly well. JD Martinez had a fantastic season. Um, Chris Sale, I don't really think did anything, but Xander Bogaerts is really good. Rafael Devers played well. Alex Verdugo was pretty good. I think he was. Their entire team really just showed like the younger versions of themselves, and they kind of went all over the place during the year. Nathan Eovaldi was really good for them. So Boston had a really good team. They got to the playoffs just barely. Got to a wild card game to playing their big time rivals and historic rivals. This is that doesn't mean as I was doing an episode of college basketball with Duke, North Carolina. Uh, you want to know what the Duke North Carolina rivalry is in the MLB? Is the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. and they played each other in the wild card game, and it was good. And Boston would come on top. They would get to the ALCS, surprisingly, and would fall short to the Houston Astros. But this was really a pretty good season this past year for Boston. A bit of a surprise for really a lot of people. And I really think that Boston will probably be in about the same position this year. I mean, they're gonna be honestly. I think because of Tampa Bay, I think they'll be in the mix for the. I think the Red Sox will be in the mix for the East Division for the East Division title, as well as the Rays. I think both of them will be right there for the division title, and I think pretty much the entire East is, except for the bottom team there. But I think Boston, they're going to be in the playoff race for sure. Um, I don't know if they'll get to the ALCS like they did last year, but I do think that they'll be in the running for a playoff position. And now we have the New York Yankees, who well, Boston actually made a. I forgot to actually mention big time signings for these teams. Boston did get Trevor Story, so we'll see how that works out for them coming from the Colorado Rockies. Um, but really, other than that, Boston didn't do much in terms of acquisitions, and neither did Tampa Bay. New York Yankees also last year finished 92-70. Um, but their team really isn't in the greatest position right now, especially with all the trades that they have been making. They've been sending out all their last year. They had a horrible start to the season. It was not looking good for New York, and in an attempt to really basically make up for their pathetic start and try and jumpstart their team, they went out and made a lot of trades. They would trade for they traded for both Joey Gallo, giving a bunch of guys to the Rangers. They would trade for Anthony Rizzo, giving a bunch of guys to the Cubs. And they would make a couple trades to try and put themselves in a position to get to the playoffs, and it worked. They just barely snuck ahead of the Blue Jays there, as well as Boston, but they would just sneak ahead of the Blue Jays to fight Boston for in the wild card game and would fall short. But it was not overall a good season for the Yankees overall. I mean, like I said, Yankees, they really, just like I said, they had a horrible start to the season, and really the player that played the best for them the past year was Aaron Judge. The rest of the team significantly struggled. Gleyber Torres was not good. Gio Urshela really struggled. Gary Sanchez wasn't great. Stanton was in and out of health, but he was decent when he was in the lineup. But really, outside of all those guys, Aaron Judge was the only player that was having a good season. Luckily, I had him for fantasy. But for the Yankees, they all really, and of course, pitching, they had Garrett Cole, and really, that was about it. I mean, Corey Kluber doesn't count, in my opinion, who's now with the Rays. He probably won't do anything there either. Um, but the Yankees this year, I mean, with all the trades that they have made, they've really put themselves in a position where now they have to win. Because if they do not like get to the playoffs each and every year for the next few years here, they're gonna be in serious trouble because they've lost really pretty much all their prospects except for like one who I think is in the top 10. But the Yankees are not in a good position. Most of their prospects have pretty much been gone because they've sold them all to get big players and win now. And if they don't win now, the Yankees are going to be in serious trouble. Of I mean, who knows? They could be headed for a rebuild if they don't start getting to the playoffs and getting further and getting to the World Series. I mean, that's obviously the goal for all these teams, but especially the Yankees, you expect them to Yankees fans expect them to be in the World Series like every other year. But the Yankees, they have a good team. They have good players. I mean, I like Joey Gallo, Giancarlo Stanton. When he actually stays healthy, he's outstanding. Aaron Judge, more the same thing. He was healthy last year, which was a plus for the Yankees. But Aaron Judge, when he's healthy, he's fantastic. And so it all comes down to health for the Yankees, and then you gotta get somebody else to help Garrett Cole in the starting pitching category. I mean, he is really the only pitcher that they have, and I mean, of course, they don't have Kluber now, And really, probably their next best pitcher is Jamison Tyon. That's not good. So they need some work in the starting pitching category for sure. Um, but I mean, of course, their closers are Aroldis Chapman. I mean, he's still good again when he's healthy. So for the Yankees, it comes down to health. It comes down to really just health and performance. If you get both of those things, you're gonna have an incredible season. Otherwise, good luck to you. And now we move on to the Toronto Blue Jays, who, as you can see, just fell short of the wild card last year as their two division rivals, Boston and New York, just just beat them out. The Yankees will be in the they'll be competing for the East title, I think probably too. But the Toronto Blue Jays, this team, I'm telling you, this team might have one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, their offense is so good. It really is insane. And again, I mean, for every team, it really comes down to health. If their guys can stay healthy and, they can get the most out of the guys that they have. I mean, that's a key for everyone. But for the Toronto Blue Jays, their offense really is just absolutely insane. And it is so hard to fathom just how many good players that they have. I mean, they have a up and coming prospect, a catcher in Danny Jansen. Then you got Bo Bichette, Matt Chapman, who they just traded for this year, Vladimir Guerrero, Cavan Biggio probably will. Oh no, he'll probably be a second. I don't know, but Cavan Biggio, he's a decent player. Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez, George Springer. I mean, that's a starting lineup offensively. That's insane. But I mean, the Toronto Blue Jay offense, I think, is going to be among the best in the league. But the big problem for the Blue Jays coming into last year too, because their offense was incredible last year. But the problem for the Blue Jays this year is going to be, or last year and really this year, was pitching. They really they lacked the pitching. They lacked starting pitching and they lacked relief pitching. Best pitching overall was not really there for the Blue Jays. And last year they made their best effort at trying to improve both as they went out and traded for both Jose Barrios and Brad Hand. Jose Barrios played pretty stinking well for the Blue Jays and is still with them, as I think they got still another few years of Jose Barrios. So that was a really nice pickup for the Blue Jays at the deadline last year. Brad Hand, he came over from the Nationals. The Blue Jays traded for him, and he completely flopped. Brad Hand was not good with the Blue Jays. He completely stunk, and instead they ended up going with somebody else. As both Jordan Romano and Julian Mayweather, I think they were both still hurt at that point, so they didn't have either one of them as a closer. And their relief pitching last year was just a mess, and it showed. This year, though, the pitching is relief pitching is healthy. You got Jordan Romano, and I think Julian Mayweather might be the setup guy for the Blue Jays. And other than that, the relief pitching doesn't really have anybody else. I think they had Kirby Yates, I think, but he was hurt all of last year. I don't know if he's still with the Blue Jays. And then for starting pitching, you have Hyunjin Ryu. I forget how you pronounce his name, but he's a decent pitcher. Of course, Jose Barrios, Alek Manoah, who's a up and coming guy for the Blue Jays. So their starting pitching looks way better than it did last year, I would say. Obviously, it'll depend on Hinu Jin Ryu. I think that's what it is. Or is it Ryu Jin? No, I don't think it is. Hinu Jin Ryu. I'm just gonna go with that. I don't know if it's how you pronounce it. I really cannot remember. But he had a good season. I think like 2 or 3 years ago. The past two, he has not been great for the Blue Jays. So that'll be a big key to the Blue Jays' success. And then Alek Manoah, that's a big time prospect for the Blue Jays, starting pitcher. He is going to be another big key to Toronto's success. But of course, Jose Barrios is going to be the ace for this team. I think Toronto might be, in my opinion. I mean, it's pretty hard between those top four. Who's gonna win a division? But if you had to ask me, who do I think has the best chance? I think it's the Blue Jays. With that outstanding offense, and I mean, Jordan Romano is a decent reliever. He's not terrible. Neither is Julian Mayweather. And I mean, it is two guys. They do need more than just two guys. But I mean, their relief pitching isn't like the worst in the world. You could be worse. It could be worse. And then starting pitching, you got three guys, and really when you get to the playoffs, that's about all you need, really. And so I really think that the Blue Jays will be in a very good position here, and I think they'll be right in that race again. I think they'll be in the playoffs this year. But Toronto's got a really good team, and I think that might be the team to beat in the East. It's gonna be close though. I think all those teams are gonna be in that mix for the title for that division. So that division is gonna be fun to watch. And last and certainly least in this division, we have the Baltimore Orioles, who you can see the record. It was not pretty for them this past year. But, I mean, they're still in the rebuild, and they're in a heavy rebuild still. They're in the rebuild stage. It's really the only good player they probably have on their team. I mean, they have obviously good prospects, but like Grayson Rodriguez and oddly Rutchinson, is it? Or Rutschman? I can't remember how you pronounce it, but he's a big time catcher. He's currently hurt for the Orioles, so that doesn't help Baltimore. Um, and then Grayson Rodriguez is a big time pitching prospect for the Orioles. So they have good prospects, but they're definitely still in the rebuilding phase. They're not going to be playing for anything this year. And the hard thing for the Orioles is you're in the East, which is all full of playoff contending teams. The last thing you want is to be stuck in that kind of a division when you're trying to rebuild. So it's gonna be a mess for the Orioles trying to get out of that division, but or trying to rebuild in that division. But I mean, this is a good team. They have some good players. Trey Mancini, I doubt he'll be around that much longer. If he plays well again, he'll probably get traded, and they'll get some more prospects for him. But that is the American League East. So now, apparently it wasn't on there. And so now we move on to the AL Central, as you can see who was in the AL Central. But we'll get to them in a moment. First team we have is the Chicago White Sox, who really have still a pretty solid overall team. Now, I will say for Chicago, I mean, I'm not a White Sox fan. I'm not a Cleveland. I'm not really a fan of any of these teams in this division, but I don't like any of these teams except for the one right in the smack dab middle right there. Sorry. But the White Sox, really, they have a massive hole at outfield. They seriously lack outfielders, and they but they went and got some outfielders for themselves. They have a very good relief pitching core, and with the struggles of Craig Kimbrell last year, after they got him at the trade deadline from the Cubs. Yeah, because it was a cross city trade. When they got Kimbrel from the Cubs, who had an incredible season with the Cubs, they tried putting Kimbrel into a setup role. The setup Liam Hendricks, it did not work. Kimbrel was not good in the setup role for the White Sox. He really struggled, and so with them already having Kendall Graveman as their new setup guy and bringing in a couple of other guys for their relief for their bullpen. Yeah, I keep saying relief core. It's bullpen. More guys in for their bullpen. They decided to trade Kimbrel away to the LA Dodgers. And the Dodgers would send the White Sox AJ Pollock, who's an experienced and good outfielder, and that's exactly what the White Sox needed. And the Dodgers are looking for a closer when they lost Kenley Jansen, so it made sense for all sides. Good trade, I'd say, on both ends. They both won that deal. Um, But for Chicago, I think like in this division, it really is going to be a struggle for a lot of teams. This is not a great AL Central. I think Chicago is far and away probably still the best team in this division, as they still have more of the same guys that they did last year, and they're going to have still great hitters, and they still have Lucas Giolito, and they still have Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease. They did lose Carlos Rodon to the Giants, but this Chicago team is still pretty good, and they're going to be hard to beat for pretty much everyone in this division. So I think the White Sox are definitely the favorites to win the AL Central, but there's definitely two dark horses in this division that I'd say could end up knocking them off for the division, and I'll get to them in a moment here. This one's not one of them, though. The Cleveland Cleveland is next up here after Chicago. And if you've been living under a rock and you have not been paying attention to the MLB or really even the NFL, Cleveland has now changed its name to the Cleveland Guardians. Yes, the Cleveland is no longer the Cleveland Indians. They got rid of Chief Wahoo. They got rid of the Indian name. They are now the Cleveland Guardians. And if you haven't been paying attention, they kind of did this after the Washington, now Commanders in the NFL, got rid of their name, which formerly was the Redskins. They went to the Washington football team for 2 years. God, that pained the crap out of me. And then they finally got their name changed to the Commanders. I don't care about the name. I just want you to call yourself something. Do not call yourself the football team or the baseball team. I had a nightmare thinking that's what the Cleveland would do, but they ended up just keeping their old name until they got a new one, which is now the Guardians. Whatever. If you're asking me, like the whole team name thing, I don't pay attention to that stuff. I don't really care what the team name is. I mean, I care about the guys that you're playing. I don't pay attention to the team name. I just pay attention to who's on the team. So, I mean, I guess I've never really focused on it. But moving on. Cleveland Guardians. This team is really kind of unspecial on all ends. Their starting pitching pretty much just has Shane Bieber, and then that's pretty much it. They don't really have anything in the bullpen. Uh, Hitting, they have Jose Ramirez, who is a pretty doggone good player, but other than that, they don't really have much. And so, or they have, well, they do have actually Emmanuel Clase as their closer. He's actually a good pitcher. Tristan McKenzie, that's another starter I completely forgot about. Aaron Savali, he's decent. Yeah, they got pitching. Cleveland has really always been known for pitching. One year, as a couple of years ago, they actually had Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevinger, Corey Kluber, and Carlos Carrasco all on the same team. And mind you, these are the days when those guys were at their prime. So Kluber was playing his best ball. Bauer was just coming up, and he was incredible. Carrasco was playing his best ball, and then the other one I named Mike Clevinger, he was playing his best ball. So their pitching staff has been overloaded for years. But now, even now, they still got some solid pitchers. Um, I don't like their hitting at all. They don't have really much of any offense outside of Jose Ramirez. So this is why I don't think I'm sorry, it's the Guardians. Um, Cleveland, I don't really think they'll be contending for a playoff spot. I suppose they could if they end up having like a good start to the year and they're still in contention by the trade deadline. They make a couple trades and get a couple offensive players, and then sure, they could be in the playoff race. But I don't think this team will be competing for any. I don't think this team will be competing for any playoff spot anytime soon, especially with all the teams up in the East up there that we just saw. And there's way too many good teams for them to compete with. I don't think they'll be able to compete with their records. I think they'll be just short of the playoffs. And next is our very own Detroit Tigers. Yes, The Tigers last year they finished right in the middle of this division. They were a couple games below 500. Um, but this team was rebuilding obviously a couple years ago. Had like one of the worst records in the MLB. But this team is on the rise, and I think they'll just get even better this year. Uh, Obviously, their big time prospects Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green both will be coming up soon. Torkelson actually made the opening day roster, so I'm expecting him to probably start at first base. Miggy will probably be our DH. Unfortunately, Riley Green fractured his right foot, so he will not be in the opening day roster. And so we'll probably have Victor Reyes. I think Dad's Cameron got optioned to AAA. So we'll probably have either Victor Reyes or Derek Hill in at center with Robbie Ray. I'm sorry, Robbie Grossman. I like Robbie Grossman. Take a guess why. Robbie Grossman and Akil Baddoo over on as the other two outfielders. Our infield probably would be the looks of our infield would be the looks of Jameer Candelario, Javi Baez, of course. I actually really like that signing. Jonathan Scope, Torkelson being at first base, and then we would have the guy that we got from the Reds. I forget his name, but we traded for him during the offseason. Decent veteran, not much of a hitter, but he's a good defensive player. Um, but this Tiger team, I mean, their hitting was really the problem, and it's been the problem for some time because they have an outstanding amount of pitchers. Their pitching is loaded. I mean, even this year, now we got Michael Pineda from the Twins, and he had a good year before he got an injury. And even with the injury, after the injury, he was still pretty good. I'm not a fan of the Eduardo Rodriguez signing, but I mean, he'll be a nice back end dude, I suppose. And then you got Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize, and Matt Manning, all of which are young and budding pitchers. Yeah, excuse me, all of which are young and budding pitchers, and all those guys are going to end up looking incredible for the Tigers in the future. And they're going to be dangerous. They're going to be very hard. The Tigers are being very hard to score on. Gregory Soto is also in the bullpen as our closer. You got Michael Fulmer in there. So I love our pitching staff. I'm not the biggest fan of all of our bullpen guys, but I do like Fulmer, and I can live with Soto, I guess. But our starting pitching is absolutely absurd, and if our relief pitching can hold up between Fulmer and Soto, that will help out. And we did sign Andrew Chaffin from from the Oakland A's, I think. He was like one of the top free agent relievers. He was also a lefty, so that'll be a nice addition to our bullpen as well. So I love our pitching. I think our pitching is going to be just fine. The question is going to be the offense. Can the offense produce the runs to give the Tigers enough to knock off their opponents? And it is certainly possible. I do think the Tigers, if I mean, Spencer Torkelson is coming up this year, and I mean, like I said, he already made the opening day roster, so he's probably going to start at first base. If he plays well, we've already seen what he's been doing in the minors, and he has been dominating. So if he plays like that in the majors, well, the Tigers, I mean, it'll be an up and down year for him as his rookie season. I don't expect him to be fantastic, but it should be a good season. I mean, we'll see what happens with him. And Miggy is, of course, Miggy. He's not what he was in past years, but I mean, he's there nonetheless. And I mean, he still can hit. I mean, it wasn't what he was a couple years ago. His days are obviously long since past, but he can still hit. And then Candelario's pretty good. I love Javi Baez. He does strike out a lot, but he is a good home run hitter. And if he can cut down those strikeouts, man, and he already has the defensive capability, he could end up being a very nice pickup for the Tigers. And Jonathan Scope, I love Scope. Robbie Grossman gets on base a lot. He's a good hitter. That's a good leadoff guy, really. Keel Badu, that's a great young budding player as well. He can really play. And then you obviously have just that last outfield spot. You got that Dez Cameron's. Once Riley Green comes back, I'm sure he might slot into that role. And then you have the Derek Hills and the Victor Rays. So you have plenty of you have nice prospects. And the question is, will these guys all pan out? And Akil Baddoo was an awesome pickup, getting him from the Twins last year. But I'm really excited for the Tigers this year. I do have higher expectations. I think the Tigers, if they play well, hear me on this. If their pitching does well, and if they can get because the pitching will be fine. I think the pitching is going to be great for Detroit. Um, but if the hitting at least if the hitting improves even a little bit, and they get more runs, I mean, you look at this output here of 697 runs scored. That's not a lot. I mean, you can look at the teams up here. That's barely more than the Orioles. We tied with Seattle. We're better than the Rangers at least, and I mean a couple other teams down here. But um, it's gonna be offense. If we can get more runs on the board and at least not have a differential, because we're giving up more runs than we're scoring. That's a problem. If we can reverse that and say we have this number here and this number is there, I think the Tigers will be in a much better position. It's going to depend on the offense. If the offense can produce more runs than we did last year, I think the Tigers have a good chance at making the playoffs. Being out the White Sox with the division, I don't think so. But they're definitely a dark horse. This is one of my dark horses in this division. Can if the Tigers improve how they think they will, they very well could be in the mix for a wild card spot and maybe even a dark horse for the division. Now, yes, that sounds like I'm being a major league homer, and trust me, it kind of is, but it's not totally, I'd say, out of the question. And then we have the Kansas City Royals, who I don't really think the Royals are going to be going much of any place this year. I think they might finish pretty much right around the same spot that they were this past year, which you can see the record right there, 74 and 88. I think they'll be pretty much right around that same spot. They did get Zach Greinke back for one more year, bringing it full circle. Kind of cool. That's kind of cool. But they don't really have much other pitching. They kind of their hitting is okay. I mean, you got Andrew Benintendi. Uh, you got Benintendi. You got Carlos Santana's with the Royals now, and he's decent. Their hitting actually is fine. They have Whit Merrifield. Bobby Witt Jr. is gonna be on the roster for the Royals. That's gonna be a big one for Kansas City. Number one prospect in all of baseball now with Wander Franco being in the majors, so he's the next upcoming guy. He's gonna be a big key to the Royals. They theoretically could maybe make a run, but their pitching would have to improve dramatically for them to be able to get more wins because they lack pitching. And because their offense is not bad, but they need way more pitching, and I don't know if they'll be able to get those pitchers. And now we go to the last team, and certainly not the least in this division, honestly, and that's the Minnesota Twins. And the Twins made some shocking moves over the offseason as they dramatically improved their starting pitching. They have an upcoming prospect in Joe Ryan. He's going to be their opening day starter. But they also signed, or not signed, but they did sign guys too. But they traded for Sonny Gray, who has honestly been having a couple nice years here. More of revitalizing his career from his time when he was with the Oakland Athletics. He was really good, of course, with Oakland. But he's been looking way better since he's had a really ugly stretch, and now he's looking honestly decent. And so he'll be big for the Twins. Of course, like I said, they don't have Michael Pineda anymore, as he is now with the Tigers. but they also have Dylan Bundy, who he was awful with the Angels. He had a really good year for the Angels. He was absolutely incredible, and then the next year he could not find it whatsoever. And so now he is expected to be in the starting rotation with the Twins. If he ends up getting the old form that he had with the Angels that got him that good ERA, that'll be a nice pickup for the Twins. Otherwise, you can forget it. And they also signed Chris Archer, who was a big time prospect for the Rays. He did not really pan out, and so now the Twins are giving him a second chance. I mean, they're kind of just shooting shots in the dark at a bunch of guys, and so it's really gonna depend on like can these guys really produce anymore and get to the point that they were before. But I mean, their starting pitching could either completely. I mean, you see like Dylan Bundy and Chris Archer, like both of those guys, if they both produce like they did at the in their past few years, like earlier, well, yeah, it'll work out well for incredibly well for the Twins. Otherwise, might be a problem. And of course, like I said, Joe Ryan's really good. But a big one was their trade with the Yankees, which I didn't mention when I talked about the Yankees. Actually, um, they gave I know two guys that they gave the Yankees, but in the trade that they made with the New York Yankees, they would uh, they would give the Yankees Josh Donaldson, um, Isher Kenner Falefa. I think I am saying that right. Like let me see. Yeah, it's Isha. Yeah, I think it is. I don't know if it's Isha. I'm just I'm spitballing here. I have no idea what the name is. It's Isher Kinner Falefa. I think. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. And of course, as I said earlier, Josh Donaldson, and then a catcher in Ben Rortvedet. No idea who that is. And then the Yankees gave the Twins in return Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. So that was a unique trade for the Yankees. I mean, they get Josh Donaldson, and he had a revitalizing year with the Twins. Isher Kinner Falefa was traded to the Twins like a day or two ago, and then he gets traded to Yankees. I mean, he's okay, nothing more. But the Twins got two guys from the Yankees that once again are are both decently young, neither of which had panned out for the Yankees, and now they're getting the chance with the Twins to try and produce. There's a lot of shots in the dark for the Twins, and of course, let's not forget they also made a big time signing of getting Carlos Correa. So this is a very unique off season for the Twins. To me, it really feels like the Twins are trying to make a push to win right now. But they didn't really make the greatest signings overall. I mean, Carlos Correa is really good, but other than that, they kind of don't have the things that they really need. But I think the Twins team, if they can get like enough hitting, especially with Carlos Correa now with the Twins, that will definitely help out their offense. But I mean, you can see like their offense last year was honestly kind of decent. It wasn't that bad, and of course now with Correa on it, I mean they lose Donaldson, but they still have Carlos Correa, and now you add Gio Urshela, who is a shot in the dark, but I mean he was a good player with he's obviously a young player. He can turn it around. Gary Sanchez, he's a very good power hitter with the Yankees. He had one really good season, but he hasn't been good since then. So I think the Minnesota Twin offense is going to be more the same. But this number right here, if I can highlight it right, this number right here is really the problem. Um, there we go. That number right there. Runs against, they gave up 834 runs during the season. I mean, obviously, you can see what the Orioles did, but I mean, that is it's a very high number, and so I think for the Twins, I mean, they took some. Excuse me, I keep yawning all the time. They took a lot of chances on a lot of pitchers that are a bit past their days. But if it works out, then the Twins could have a really good team. This team is either going to be well above expectations or well below expectations. I don't think there's really any middle. I think they'll be either well above this record or well below this record. So we'll see how which way it goes. They're gonna either boom or completely bust. So it's gonna. I think this is another dark horse though, because if they do play well, they could. Because if like Chris Archer does what he did when he was playing well, Bundy has a rejuvenized season. Sonny Gray becomes the old Sonny Gray, and Joe Ryan has a good the prospect. Joe Ryan looks pretty good. Yeah, I think the Twins definitely could make a run at another playoff spot. Um, I think it's entirely possible. And that's the AL Central. And then now we go to the AL West, where we have the Houston Astros as the number one team, and they're gonna stay like that. They're not going anywhere. They did lose Carlos Correa, and that is unfortunate for Houston. They didn't really get anyone to replace him. They lost Zach Greinke as well, but this is still a good Houston team. They still have a really outstanding offense. They still have Jose Altuve, Jordan Alvarez. Uh, of course, like I said, Jose Altuve, Jordan Alvarez. Their offense, Kyle Tucker. Their offense is still very good and is going to be very difficult to slow down, as evidenced by that number right there. um, and their pitching was really good last year as well too. So I think Houston's going to be another playoff team. I think they'll be right in that mix yet again. I think they'll have a very good season and look good. Seattle Mariners, they really found themselves in a very unique position last year because they were trying to tank. I mean, they didn't plan on winning games. They didn't plan on a winning season, and so they planned on losing. And when they didn't lose and they kept winning, they found themselves in a position to actually win and get to the playoffs. And they're like, oh, um, I guess let's go and get some guys. And so they did. They got Kendall Graveman. They got Diego Castillo, I believe, both relievers. Jared Kelenic was coming up for him, and he did not play well in the majors. But he'll be back for the Seattle Mariners in the majors again. Julio Rodriguez should be in the majors soon with the Mariners as well. Those were their two big time outfield prospects. Logan Gilbert is an up and coming prospect for the Mariners. He was in the majors last year, and he looked really good. So Seattle has a lot of young guys, and they have some older guys who I'll be curious to see how they all meld together. Obviously, Kyle Seager retired, which was a big loss for Seattle, considering how many homers he had last year for him. But I think Seattle definitely, the Mariners could be looking at possibly a fringe kind of playoff team. I think they'll be a fringe playoff team this year. They definitely could be in the mix. The Oakland A's, they probably had the worst offseason out of any team. I mean, this team. I mean, look at the record. I mean, they're 86 and 76. I mean, this is not a bad record. I mean, runs scored. That's not bad. I mean, runs against. Yeah, I mean, they're not a bad. That's not a bad record overall. I mean, that's not a bad team. And instead, they decide, you know what? Let's just get rid of everybody and let's rebuild for no apparent reason. I don't get this by Oakland. You get so close to the playoffs, and you're getting to where you think like, oh, we're getting really close. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs, and then you just decide, oh, let's just trade away everybody. Let's just get rid of it. Let's tear it down, and let's just start from scratch. What? No, we're getting to where we want to be. Let's keep going. Let's get a couple guys. Let's make a couple trades instead of trading everybody away. Let's get somebody to ourselves. They trade away Matt Olson, trade away Sean Manaea, a bunch of other guys, Matt Chapman. So they really they're tearing it down. They're starting over. So expect a really bad season from this team. Um, there's this team is really going to struggle, and it's really disappointing because they could have had um, a good year. If they mean you have still you have like Matt Olson still with you amongst other guys, but they just trade them all away. So I'm expecting Oakland to be significantly worse. So it won't be a good year for them. Then we have the LA Angels. I'm not an Angels fan, and I'm not really a team of Los Angeles teams, period. But the Angels, this is going to be dependent on really health. Because we had Mike Trout get hurt last year, and that absolutely killed the Angels. As much as they had Shohei Ohtani just having an outstanding season, he probably will again this year. His pitching will probably get better, and his hitting was just unbelievable last year. Him being a dual threat player, pitching and hitting, is absolutely ridiculous and is very dangerous to the rest of the league. So he's going to be a problem for pretty much everyone. Mike Trout, of course, is very good. They released Justin Upton, so that was interesting. But outside of Ohtani, they lacked pitching significantly. They went out and they tried to. They're going for a. And just like really the Twins, as we talked about earlier, it took a huge shot in the dark as they went and got themselves. As the Angels, they went and got themselves. Noah Syndergaard. And we all know Syndergaard is very good when he's healthy. The issue with him is he doesn't really stay healthy. He has problems being healthy, and so and really it's kind of like he's exactly like Jacob Degrom. Really, he was really good when he was healthy, but other than that, he never really produced. But he never really was able to stay on the floor, stay on the field. He constantly got hurt. But if he stays healthy for the Angels, and yeah, this will be a very good pickup. But they're hitting. I mean, you got Trout and Ohtani. You got everybody else. I mean, they're a solid overall team. I think they'll be around 500. They might get close to the playoffs, but it's gonna be hard for the Angels to get there. I think they'll have a hard time getting to that point. That's because they're hitting. I mean, outside of Trout and Ohtani, is not exactly amazing per se, and they're pitching outside of their great closer and then Ohtani, and if Syndergaard stays healthy, they don't really have much there either. So I think they just kind of lack in all the spots. So they'll be. I don't think their season is going to be fantastic, but it could be. Now the last team, as I'll end it after this team, and then do a separate video for the National League. The last team in here is the Texas Rangers, and they just came out of nowhere and just said, you know what? Let's drop a crap ton of money on Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, and let's just use our entire free agency on those two guys, and they did get them both, and they do have a very nice middle infield now, but rest of their team kind of lacks. So I don't know what the Rangers are doing. I really don't know what the Texas Rangers thought was going to happen when you just spend a bunch of money on two guys, one of which has injury problems, and Corey Seager. Um, but you never know. I mean, the Rangers, obviously, with those two moves, I would assume are probably thinking, "Hey, let's try and win now." But they don't really have the tools to win now, so I don't know what those two signings mean. They'll be better than this record. I think they'll be more around this record, but Texas still is not going to have that great of a season. I'm not expecting too much out of them. Um, as I said, more of the Angels record here would be my guess, and Oakland's probably going to fall more like that. But that's going to be all for me today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I do apologize for the really low volume level. I'll try and fix that probably maybe in the next episode here or maybe next week. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out later. But that's all for me. Until next time, everyone. Adios.